How you doing, Pink Bike viewers? I'm Dave Weagle here in beautiful, temperate Las Vegas. It's a balmy 65 degrees, kind of cold actually. And I'm here to talk about the 2011 Devinci Wilson with my split pivot suspension. It's a bike been a long time in the making and we're really excited about. So obviously the Wilson's a downhill bike. It's Devinci's. It's been Devinci's premier DH bike for a few years and been raced on the World Cups. And this is the latest iteration. We've actually been testing with it for a long time, since 2009, since the beginning of 2009, in secret in Whistler, and then I've been riding it on the East Coast, and it's gone through a couple iterations. This actually is a small size frame right here, one of the cool things about it, obviously I was talking a little bit about the split pivot thing, which I'm excited about. Uses a concentric dropout pivot, which we just got a patent on in May of this year, and it's got a kind of a different layout for split pivot design. It's pretty unique where the brake is actually mounted to the chainstay and uses a link that pivots concentric around the bottom bracket and drives the shock. So it keeps the shock really low in the chassis, keeps the center of mass low, and hopefully helps you go faster, through those flat corners where moving the bike around really matters. Yeah, so split pivot, it's a really, really simple design. It's basically a single pivot for acceleration. There's no trickery there. It's nothing complex about it. But the cool thing about it is that because the braking is completely isolated and leverage ratio is completely isolated, we can put this single pivot in a place that's really great for acceleration and would be really horrible for braking if it didn't have a floating brake of some type. And then by mounting the brake to the floating member and driving the shock off of the control link here, we can really tailor leverage ratio and braking separately from acceleration. So it ends up building a bike that's really simple to build, really easy to build, and really lightweight. And additionally, it's really easy for us to have a geometry adjust, which is in this pivot right here. And just by flipping the pivot back and forth, you can change your BB height and head angle. And it's like a 5-minute change. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so you guys may have noticed, compared to some other bikes, especially other single pivot type bikes, the main pivot is pretty high on this bike, And like I was kind of touching on, we're able to do that because there's no detriment to braking, there's no detriment to leverage ratio. So by putting it up high, we're able to get a lot better of acceleration performance, a lot better square edge performance, and still because the pivot is somewhat rearward too, through the middle of the travel, the bike's going to corner rear well, it's going to track rear well, and everything's kind of a balancing act. But the beauty of the split pivot design is there is no compromise with pivot location here. We make this work for acceleration and bump compliance, and that's it. Yeah, there have definitely been some questions about the concentric control link pivot, and the real reason behind that with this bike was more for packaging than anything. Everything fit together really well to use that pivot concentric to the BB as opposed to having a separate pivot behind or above or below. That allows us to fit the shock really tight to the down tube and really low in the chassis, and also have a big chainstay yoke clearance, and just everything fit together. Shock compatibility is there are definitely a bunch of 10.5 by 3.5 shocks on the market. This shock is actually a custom valved tune from Fox that we've spent a lot of time on over this summer. It's actually been a big focus of my summer, working on getting this tune to work properly and get it to the point where it's going to be dialed on the track, I guess. There aren't really any air shocks that I know of that are 10.5, 3.5, but springs in these long stroke shocks are actually quite light. And it ends up working real well. And one of Devinci's calling cards over the years has been low leverage ratio, and so that was something that was really, really important to Devinci to keep with this design, was that longer stroke shock. And it's actually a 216 millimeter travel rear, so it's a little longer than normal, but it's not to the point of ridiculousness. This bike is using a special tune because we're able to get more out of it than with a stock off-the-shelf tune, but now this tune is a stock off-the-shelf Fox tune, so I guess it was custom a couple of weeks ago. Now it's production. One other thing that's really unique about this particular layout of the split pivot design is that the suspension is really progressive through the end of the travel, so the leverage ratio gets quite a bit lower through the end of the travel. And what that lets us do is basically run less pressure and bigger volume in this damper, and basically helps us get a little bit more small bump compliance and get that big end travel cush that we're really looking for on a downhill bike. Geometry, 13.964 and 13.763, but I could be making that up. I can't remember. I run it in the slackest, lowest position when I ride it most of the time. So the head tube can accept an angle set. It's a 44/56, so fully integrated. And there's a full line of the Cane Creek angle sets in there. So if you do want to go slacker and steeper, that's cool, or steeper, that's cool. And keep in mind, you also have geometry adjusted the dropout, and it's super easy to change. So, you know, it kind of the idea behind, you know, most of the bikes that we're working on these days is try to make something that's as adjustable as possible within range. It's going to be useful for riders. And obviously, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for, you know, a top-level World Cup guy. It's you know, it all kind of depends on how aggressive you are and how hard you're willing to push it. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'm Dave. Stay tuned to Pink Bike for more Interbike coverage 2010.